Remember back in the day when you were just angry for no reason and just wanted to break stuff, metaphorically and literally? And the only thing that could really allow you to channel that primal rage was the soothing sounds of one man's voice. He would scream out monstrous roars, mixed with a high-energy, aggressively beautiful, whiny call to battle. His band's chart-topping hits were the weapons we needed to rebel against nothing and everything all at once. Musically overdosing the world on a mixture of the hardest metal with a rebellious punk attitude, featuring the most bumping of raps. He's the ultimate frontman of nu metal. This artist looks at life like it's one big mosh pit. And while moshing around the entertainment biz, this controversial musician has feuded with everyone from Slipknot to System of a Down, Creed, Eminem, and even the country of Ukraine. His band became the biggest act of a new genre of music, which made a lot of people hate him. And it made a lot of people love him, and those people would send his albums straight to #1. However, in recent years, you may be surprised to see his name under a directed by credit, while his band took a nearly 20-year hiatus from releasing new music. So as we sit here wondering what we do it all for, it's time to ask ourselves what the f*** happened to Fred Durst. But to truly understand what the f*** happened to Fred Durst, we must begin at the beginning, and the beginning began when he was born on his birthday, 1970, Jacksonville, Florida. As a preteen, young Freddie boy would take an interest in skateboarding and breakdancing, which would train his ear to different styles of music associated with each of those skills, breaking and skating. He grew up with a nice mix of heavy metal and hip-hop. As soon as he turned 18, Fred Durst would enlist in the United States Navy, and after 2 years of service he would move back to Florida and work as a landscaper and tattoo artist. Yet the desire to start a band was always lingering in the back of his mind, in the back of his Limp Bizkit. He wanted to bring together and mix up all of the genres he grew up loving. Young Freddie boy would form a band with bassist Sam Rivers, drummer John Otto, and guitarist Wes Borland, cause they were all into that whole rappin' and rockin' thing. The 4 members of this band would play shows at the famed underground punk club Milk Bar in Jacksonville, named after A Clockwork Orange, and they would gain a pretty solid following with their covers of George Michael's Faith and Paula Abdul's Straight Up. But every band needs a good name. Fred Durst says that he wanted a name for the band that would really repel and disgust listeners. He came up with several names, including Gimp Disco, Split Dick Slit, Bitch Piglet, and of course, Blood Fart, before landing on the name Limp Bizkit. I'm not exactly sure what Limp Bizkit means. Maybe it has something to do with using too much gravy on Thanksgiving or something. I don't know. Let me see here. I'm just gonna Google it or DuckDuckGo it. Let's just see here what exactly this means. Limp Bizkit. Oh, it's when... Oh, what the f***? Fred Durst said that he liked the name because it represented that the band didn't take itself too seriously, and that anyone who would be turned off by the name aren't the type of people they would want listening to their music anyway, so there. Fred knew that the only way to actually make it, regardless of how good the music is to go out and hustle. And boy howdy, that's what he did. The owner of the Milk Bar says that Limp Bizkit went from playing shows for 8 people to playing shows for 800 within a month. And that's because Fred was pounding the pavement getting the word out about his band, Limp Bizkit, going to all the local record shops and just inviting people to the shows, as well as calling local labels pretending to be the band's manager. Unfortunately for Limp Bizkit, at the time, grunge was all the rage, and labels were not interested in that style that Limp Bizkit was doing. But at the underground clubs, this new genre was taking off. A new metal, if you will. New metal. That's what the cool kids call it. At the time, another heavy-hitting band was starting to make their name known. Korn. Korn would come to town to perform. After the show, Fred Durst would invite the members of Korn back to his house for some beers and free tattoos. While there, Fred Durst had the members of Korn listen to the band's demo, which impressed these children of the Korn, so much so that they would invite Limp Bizkit on tour with them, while giving the Limp Bizkit demo tape to producer Ross Robinson, who's known as the godfather of nu metal. Even though he'd never listened to the demo tape, his girlfriend did, and she liked it, and that was enough. However, before they could record the album, Fred Durst and guitarist Wes Borland got into a vicious argument, and Wes actually quit the band. Fred Durst and the remainder of the band would rent out a van to drive out to Malibu, California, to record the album. However, in the early morning hours while driving through Texas, the driver of the van would temporarily fall asleep, and the van would violently flip over, severely injuring everyone. Fred Durst saw surviving this horrible accident as a sign of a second chance, and he used that chance to make amends with guitarist Wes Borland, who would rejoin Limp Bizkit soon after. And the world would never be the same! Limp Bizkit's first album, $3 Bill Y'all, would be released on July 1st, 1997, and would reach number 22 on the US charts, yet has since gone platinum twice. The initial wave of fame wasn't exactly positive. Limp Bizkit would tour with the band Faith No More, and would be consistently booed at every show. Of course, some of that was Fred Durst's own making, as he would be antagonistic with the crowds, calling them mean names and stuff. The Faith No More keyboardist recalls that Fred Durst was really kind of a jerk on tour and had a bad attitude. But as they say, no press is bad press, and in the case of Limp Bizkit, one of the most famous cases of payola happened when Interscope Records paid a Portland, Oregon radio station $5,000 to play Limp Bizkit's song Counterfeit 50 times. And the move worked. It got everybody talking about this crazy new band. Soon after, Fred Durst would be named Senior Vice President of A&R, Artist and Repertoire, at Interscope Records. And as the album continued to gain momentum, Limp Bizkit would be invited to perform alongside mainstream acts like Blink-182 and the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones, while performing on major tours such as the Vans Warped Tour and Ozfest. Once Fred Durst and the band was able to settle down a little bit, Fred was able to start fulfilling other passions he had, namely directing, as he would direct the band's first music video, The Cover of Faith. That music video would emerge as a massive hit on MTV, music television, back when they actually played the music on the television, becoming the most requested song on Total Request Live, TRL, which would give the band even more radio airplay. And this time they didn't have to pay for it. Add to that the emergence of popular video games, such as Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, which would use these newer bands on their soundtrack. It was the perfect time, the perfect place, and the perfect band to do it. The blending together of genres and subcultures, like skaters and gamers and punks, rock and rollers, stoners, people who appreciate the art of hip-hop, and outcasts. It was an interesting time in history that I think people will look back on and say, wow, what the f***? And that may be a good thing or a bad thing depending on how you look at it. So yeah, right there, you have the true origins of one of the biggest bands of the late 90s and early aughts. Even if many critics hate every f***ing molecule of their existence, which made them even cooler. And despite the hate that Fred and his band get from anybody who's not a fan, they had actually garnered a lot of respect in the industry. And that can be seen with their follow-up album, Significant Other, that featured collaborations with people such as Method Man, Scott Weiland, and Les Claypool, among others. And they would be nominated for Best Rock Album at the Grammys. This album, Significant Other, it was the true breakout album for this band, Limp Bizkit. They would be featured on numerous magazine covers, while the album would go #1 on the Billboard charts, and ultimately go 7 times platinum, featuring such classic tracks as Nookie, In Together Now, and of course Break Stuff. And all the success and hype from this album would lead the band all the way to Woodstock 1999. Give me something to break! And if any of y'all out there have seen the Netflix documentary Trainwreck Woodstock 99, you know that this event was already a doomed shite show before Limp Bizkit ever took the stage. Promoters were charging ridiculous prices for water, resulting in people rebelling. And well, when you take that level of angst and add a band that thrives on that, you have the makings of a rock and roll disaster. While performing Break Stuff, Fred Durst would rile up the crowd by saying they needed to let all of their negative energy go. Later, Fred Durst said that he meant this as a way for fans to start jumping around to the music, not riot. But when that song Break Stuff started really picking up, well, that's just what the concert goers actually did. They broke stuff and tore the frickin' place apart. Many people have blamed Fred Durst and Limp Bizkit for inciting these violent, chaotic riots. But let's be honest here. Limp Bizkit went out there and did what they do. And had the festival organizers done what they were supposed to do, none of this would have happened. Most Limp Bizkit concerts don't turn into riots. Most Limp Bizkit concerts are mostly peaceful. So I do think that Durst has been made into somewhat of a scapegoat here. In Durst's defense, in a later interview, he says while on stage he couldn't really see anything in the crowd. There were just a lot of bright lights shining on him, and that's a fair point. Give me something to break! So yeah, the band Limp Bizkit was now infamous, which is what you want when it comes to rock and roll, actually. And that infamy did not hurt their sales at all. Their next album, Chocolate Starfish and Hot Dog Flavored Water, which is really like a really disgusting title. What the f***? The album, Chocolate Starfish and the Hot Dog Flavored Water, would debut at #1 on its way to selling over 8 million copies in the US alone, and would feature such tracks as My Generation, My Way, and Rollin'. Fred would also take the stage with Christina Aguilera at the 2000 MTV Music Video Awards to sing the song Livin' It Up. But it appeared that the music and the fame was taking its toll on Fred Durst. Limp Bizkit would release their next album, called Results May Vary, in September of 2003. And the downward slide of their popularity was beginning, as this album only peaked at #3 on the Billboard charts, which is still pretty good, but not as good as Limp Bizkit is used to. Yet their cover of The Who's song Behind Blue Eyes did become a breakout hit when it was featured in that Halle Berry movie Gothica, and Limp Bizkit would join that awesome Mission Impossible 2 soundtrack that every cool kid on the block had. Freddy Boy and his biscuits, they took that classic spy theme to a whole new level. New spelled N-U, new metal. After releasing the underground album, The Unquestionable Truth Part 1 in 2005, Fred Durst said that he felt his music was being misinterpreted by the masses, and that this character that he became on stage and in his songs was just that, a character. He was a rock and roll Dr. Frankenstein, and that red hat wearing singer of Limp Bizkit was his monster. So he decided to take a break from breaking stuff, a hiatus from the band, if you will, and focus on his other passions. Fred would appear in films such as Zoolander in 2001, Pauly Shore is Dead in 2003, Population 436 in 2006, and television shows such as Revelations in 2005, and a couple episodes of House MD in 2008. Fred had always wanted to step into the world of cinema, and did so by directing some very well-made music videos. But in 2007, Mr. Durst finally made his way to directing a feature film, which he faced a lot of backlash from the film community, because everybody was thinking, rock stars can't be directors. But Fred did the impossible again, and proved everyone wrong again, by directing a film that features a wonderful cast, with people like Sebastian Stan, Jason Ritter, and Jesse Eisenberg, in a beautiful coming-of-age drama called The Education of Charlie Banks in 2007. And let's be honest, this was not the type of film that we were expecting from a dude that would name his band Limp Bizkit. But this little gem of a movie would actually go on to win the Tribeca Film Festival Jury Award for Best New York Narrative Film. Wow, way to go, Fred, the feature filmmaker!
In a film by Fred Durst.
This was followed by another unexpected film, an inspirational sports drama called The Long Shots in 2008, starring Ice Cube. And it's really not that bad. It's kind of run-of-the-mill, but it's a solid sports drama that has some heart. Fred's movie The Long Shots was not a hit with critics or audiences though, only pulling in $11 million off a $23 million budget. But it still showed that Fred Durst was quite a talent in the director's seat. Imagine going back in time and telling everyone that the dude from Limp Bizkit and the dude from MWA would go on to make family-friendly feature films in the future. That'd be funny. In 2018, Fred Durst appeared as DJ Durst, perfectly poking fun at his persona in all 8 episodes of Adult Swim's Mostly for Millennials, which is actually a kind of clever, satirical look at millennial culture. And actually just recently, you guys, I just found out that I'm a millennial. Still trying to find a way to deal with that. DJ Durst will help me make it through. After directing some music videos for the band Dead, and a series of eHarmony commercials, and a car commercial, I think, Fred Durst would return to the world of feature film directing with that horrible John Travolta movie, The Fanatic, in 2019.
I can't talk too long. I gotta poo.
And actually, this right here, The Fanatic, this is the kind of movie that I imagined Fred Durst would be making. You know, thought-provoking trash. But Fred and his cast and crew, they were very confident in this movie, The Fanatic. So confident that it got an entire Oscar campaign. The Fanatic, for your consideration. While it did not get any Oscar nominations, Fred Durst did get a Razzie nomination for Worst Director. So at least that awards campaign worked for something, just not the award that people want.
Moose is in the house. Moose is in the house.
If you boil the film down to what it really is, it's the story of a man's obsession with celebrity. And there really is no better filmmaker to tackle such a subject than Fred Durst, having dealt with the good, the bad, and the ugliness that comes with the world of celebrities.
I wish Freddy Krueger would come and chop off your head.
Funny enough, this film about a crazy fan has its own crazy fans, as it is now developing a cult following by those who are mesmerized and deeply fascinated in how not good it is. Travolta is embarrassingly bad as he's trying way too hard to be crazy, but the scene where Devon Sawa's character listens to a Limp Bizkit song is the worst and the best at the same time. And that is what Fred Durst does. in cinema, and in music.
You okay with some music? You like a little Limp Bizkit?
Sure.
You like a little biscuit?
Yeah.
Yeah?
The good news for fans is that even though Limp Bizkit hasn't released a ton of albums over the last 20 years, they did return in 2021 with a new album titled Limp Bizkit Still Sucks, because Fred Durst has a sense of humor. But Still Sucks became their lowest charting album to date, peaking at number 155 on the Billboard 200. But everyone knows that the real money nowadays in the music industry is touring, and that is where Fred Durst and Limp Bizkit truly thrive. They would emerge at Lollapalooza 2021 and rocked everybody's fucking face off! Sadly, Fred Durst has made an announcement in the preparation for their 2022 tour that his doctor told him that he needed to stay close to home in order to do more medical tests. And the doctor could not recommend that Fred Durst go on tour at this time. The announcement made by Fred was pretty heartbreaking, as you can genuinely hear in his voice that the health scare is serious. But even more so, it seems like he's really hurt that he can't go on stage and entertain his loyal fans. And that right there is why Fred Durst is a really great artist. He has this stage persona, but when he needs to get real, you can see his underlining passion in what he does.
Wishing for the best, and I know everything's going to be okay. And again, thank you so much for your support, as we do love and cherish our connection with you more than anything on this planet.
You can understand that despite the negative press that he's gotten in the past, there really is only one thing he was put on Earth to do, and that is entertain us. Whether it be rapping, rocking, or making movies. His music videos have been epic game changers, and with his art, he always has a great story to tell. Whether he does that with a camera or a microphone, he does it with passion. Sadly, right now, we don't exactly know the details or the specifics of Mr. Durst's health scare. So we can't exactly end this by saying nobody should give a fuck about what the fuck happened to Fred Durst because he's doing just fine, because we don't really know how he's doing. But we hope and we pray that Fred Durst gets better, and that he gets back on that stage and rocks the world once again. But not to the point of causing a riot, just enough rock, just like right at the perfect level. Because like Fred Durst and George Michael taught us long ago, you gotta have faith.